Hello there.
Awesome. Yeah, even when you think you've nailed everything down, something or the other goes wrong. It's
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 really
called
okay. It's part of life.
it's called the curse of live demos and live interviews.
But as long as we keep trying, we do reach there. Moral of life. Very positive we are about this. So hi Evan, hi everybody who's watching us and been very patient with our failures. So basically, welcome to this Odetta Tech Live. I'm Sajal Malik and we have Amn Rahman from US with us. She is the guest speaker or just the guest for this podcast. So basically, she's a data engineer at Dockers. She has worked with Al Jazeera as a data engineer as well, and she did her graduation from, like, is it a postgrad degree from
And it's
MIT?
it's a
Yeah,
master's
and then
degree.
she did, yeah, and then she did her bachelor's from LUMS in Pakistan. So let's welcome her. Hi, Aman, how are you doing?
Doing well, Sajal. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you to the entire team. Ever since I found out about Odetta, I had to speak with all of you. So I'm super excited to be here.
It's really great to have you here as well. So we've been really looking forward to this day and we had been practicing a lot. Yeah, we've been talking since the last hour as well. So but even then we did not do this as perfectly as we wanted to. But okay, let's get this started. So basically, Aman, now that you're a data engineer and you're in the US, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't a really easy straight road. You must have had your highs and lows. So what were you thinking about when you were 15-year-old? What were your life goals? What were your aspirations? So let's have a look at Aman
I
when she was 15 years old.
I think by the time I was 15, I knew I was very tech savvy, and I had read Dan Brown's Digital Fortress, where the protagonist was female and from MIT and a computer scientist. So I think that's what initially got me thinking. Um, sorry, Saj, I'm going to cut you short. Is the live going through? Because I think we're getting a message from Vajiha.
I think it was like an old one.
Okay, awesome. So I think I'll continue because I think right now only you and I are the viewers.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Let's just make sure. And I'm hoping it's live and it's
I'm
not
hoping
just
as well.
both of us just talking. No, I think it's live. I see it on the page as well.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. I think we can continue. So,
Yeah.
by the time I was 15, so I knew I was tech savvy. I wanted to do computer science, but I didn't really know what road that would entail. I knew that, CS was something I had to study in undergrad. So that's what I ended up doing at LUMS. But then after that, after I like finished LUMS and I went to MIT for my master's, I still didn't know what professionally I would be working on. So I had gotten pretty bored with academic research. I felt that, I wasn't putting enough hard work. And what I use as a litmus test personally is if I'm not learning anything new or I'm getting bored or I'm finding it hard to work on something, it's time to like move on. So that's when I realized that maybe I need a different pace in my life. And that is why I decided to join the industry. And now when I think about it, what seemed like accidents actually make a lot of sense now to me. So a friend from MIT who was building a data team at Al Jazeera, he reached out because he was building this new team and he wanted to know if I'd want to work as a data engineer. And to be very honest, at that point, I didn't really know what being a data engineer would entail. So I looked up at the job description. I was like, okay, there's databases in there. I know I did well in my courses at LUMS. I was like, this is good. I know programming. I think we could figure this out. So because this person who was the product manager of the data team, Atif, he was also building a new team. He had no prior experience, doing data for a company before. So I was like, it'll be nice to kind of start things out, learn this kind of new environment, and see how things go on from there. But I think it was like halfway through Al Jazeera, I realized I'm like, I can do this. This is fun, and I enjoy working with data.
Okay. So basically, you were very interested in data since you were 15, thanks to the digital fortress. We
So
should write a.
I think with Digital Fortress, it was more of like code cracking. Eventually, I realized that my math is probably not that good to become a cryptographer. So that idea went away. But I think when I really started working with data was at LUMS. So I was part of a lab called Technology for People Initiative, housed within the computer science department and funded initially by Google. So I was working on data sets that we were collecting from the judicial district courts in Punjab in Pakistan, and you're doing some preliminary analysis on that. And then we were also working on other projects, kind of looking at like poverty tracking and cell phone tower tracking to look at communication patterns across different provinces and stuff. So I think that initially got me started working with data. And then at MIT, my thesis was about the requests that companies receive from the government for surveillance purposes. So I looked into data on old wiretap reports and surveillance reports. So that really got me into kind of really getting dirty with data. So that's getting my hands dirty with data, and that's how essentially I started realizing that I kind of like playing with data, drawing visualizations out and making analyses.
So basically, it was your passion towards data, and then your found great foundation at SQL that kind of made you a data engineer.
SQL and Python. I think those two are important if you're becoming a data engineer. And generally, I think another part that people don't really think about when you're doing data engineering, especially at the startup, is that you have to interact with stakeholders a lot. So there could be either internal stakeholders, so people who you work with, your colleagues. So let's say at Al Jazeera, it was like the editorial board or the social media manager, those people, or the data analyst. But at Docker, it could mean like the finance team, marketing team, everyone wants data. So we interact with each team. So I think half of my job is doing the engineering, but the other half is acting as a product manager for my own data pipelines and basically delivering each team with everything that they need from like source to destination. So I think it's a bit of everything, wearing different hats. So I mean, obviously at bigger companies, let's say at Google or Facebook, you'd be doing mostly engineering. So it'd probably be like 80-90% engineering. But at startups, you tend to wear different hats. So I'm like the data engineer, part-time data scientist, and analyst all in one.
That's a good package, because there's this term that I just recently learned, that you have to become a T professional. Even though you're vertically growing, you have to grow horizontally as well. So yeah, that's something that I get, those vibes that I get from you.
No, that's a nice way to put it, actually. I hadn't really thought about it that way, but it really helps. And, having good communication, being able to explain technical concepts to a non-technical audience, or, playing around with different systems, like playing around with the HR system, trying to figure out, how to improve their workflow as well. So at times, things that organically happen is that I'll make suggestions, let's say, to recruiters on how better to use their own software. So I think it's a pretty fun job.
Yeah. Yeah, you wouldn't be doing it for so long if it wasn't.
Fair point.
So, okay, so this is the question that we have from everybody. We've been collecting questions from our audience. We've been promoting this event for a very long time, and there's this question, that a very strong question: how did you land up at MIT? How? It's a dream school, of course, and like, how did it work out for you?
So to be very candid, by the time I was approaching my senior year at LUMS, I was very exhausted. I was burnt out. We had to take like a lot of physics and biology and chemistry courses that I had no prior background with, right? So for me, undergrad was extremely stressful and harder than for most people. But when it came to like my fourth year, my professors at LUMS kind of pushed me. They were like, Aman, you should go and apply, because, you're a Pakistani girl. Chances are you'll get married if you stay here for another year. I was like, let me take a gap year and then I'll apply next year. But they were the ones who really convinced me to apply then, because I didn't think I had the GPA to, let's say, apply to MIT or Harvard. So I honestly never thought I'd get in. So I applied because I was working for Dr. Farid Zafar at the time as a research assistant. I'm like, I'm working for him. He's telling me to apply. I should just do it, just for the sake of it. And he'll feel bad about me when I don't get in. So that's the frame of mind. I never, ever imagined that I'd ever get in. But I ended up getting into some of the best schools in the world. And then I was like, oops, I've gotten in. Now what do? I hadn't planned the rest of my journey out, because I'd never planned on going. My dad was super okay with me leaving, because when I wanted to apply to MIT way back in undergrad, and he didn't want to send a 17-year-old off to the US. So he made me a promise that he would let me go anywhere I wanted to do my master's from if I went to LUMS. And LUMS was like 5-minute drive from home. So I was kind of annoyed. I was like, I won't get my college experience. I won't be living abroad. But, with a heavy heart, I had joined LUMS initially. But when it came to masters, I was pretty scared. I was like, how am I going to live on my own and abroad? But it took convincing with my dad. He had so much faith in me, and he was like, you should go and pursue this dream of yours, which you've had, since 8th grade. But my mom was a bit hesitant, so my professors had to kind of convince her. So I think what really mattered was the fundamental decision to apply. I just applied, didn't put in too much effort into it, but I think what really mattered were my recommendations from my professors and my work experience throughout LUMS, because I was working on different projects for about 2 years or so. So yes, I applied and I got in. Even then, I think literally the first half of MIT, I thought I'd just gotten in accidentally. And I guess imposter syndrome is real, and I did feel a lot of it. But happy to have reached where I am now.
So I'm just going to give a bit of a context to the audience.
Mm-hmm.
So Aman did not have a very scientific background. She was from humanitarian background, and during the time that she applied for computer science at LUMS, she had some issues because she had some equivalency issues. She had to take extra courses, and she worked really, really hard to make it through computer science.
So the computer science was the
So
easy part. It was all the other things, because I was so passionate about CS, that was like easier to do. But eventually I developed like a really deep interest in physics, even though I had never studied it before. So I think, when life brings you to such a point, you have to really put in the effort. But yeah, it was a journey. It was a very steep learning curve.
So, what was, there is this question that I read about you on your blog. So, what kept you going whenever you were stuck in a situation?
So the different phases of my life where I was stuck and moving on from there, I think uh, probably the darkest moment in my life was when I was at MIT. This was my second year. It was a 2-year program. One of my neighbors was also a member of the graduate student council with me. We were both dorm officers. She committed suicide, and that year, I think the first year at LUMS, there had been about 10 suicides on campus. And I think this one, because, I was used to seeing her around, she was also a neighbor and a friend and also like a mentor in some capacity. And seeing her go away really put me in this dark spot where I didn't know what to do. I was having trouble concentrating and just, figuring life out. And I had also sort of started working on a dual master's degree at that point in computer science. But I had to kind of pull myself out of that and be like, listen, I cannot do this dual. I need to graduate as soon as possible because my mental health was getting affected. So I decided to just stick with one degree and leave. And I think at that point, what really mattered was having like a good support network, having friends around me, having different communities. So the different parts of my identity. There's the Pakistani in me, there's the Muslim in me, there's the techie in me. So having, an environment where you can go to, I think the Muslim community at MIT or the Pakistani community, they both really helped me out because I had those groups. And even my own program, the technology and policy program at MIT, had an amazing staff as well as really good like people in my cohort who I could, talk to and, gain strength from. The people in the dorm, who we call, the dorm officers who report to. So they report to 2 faculty members who used to live on campus, and they were part of our dorm. So having their support network, they brought in the Muslim chaplain when the suicide happened, so that she could talk to me just to make sure I was okay. So having that support network really helped, and then having an advisor that was understanding. But it was at that point I realized that no, I need to put my mental health over my academics or whatever I want to do right now, and then leave and then kind of figure life out. So I think that was probably the darkest point. But then every day, when I get stuck with work or if it's like a problem that I can't solve, there's a running joke in my team that I simply sleep on it. So there's so many times since undergrad, if I have like a bug in a code or something, that I'll just sleep on it and I'll dream about the solution and wake up and it's the correct solution. So that happens a lot. But what I tend to do is just go on a whiteboard, try to kind of put the entire problem through diagrams. And that's how I generally try to problem solve, is to dry run through code, dry run through each flow. Let's say it's a data flow issue, how best to optimize it. And it always helps to have someone talk to you with it. So I'll, sit with a pen and paper with my manager, kind of figure flows out, make sure that I understand the problem correctly, and, get input from my team. So I think that's super helpful. I think that was a very long answer. You're probably looking for a shorter answer, though.
No. I'm not. It's not. It's a very interactive one, but yeah, it's actually good to know the whole flow of things because people there is the stigma that people who do get what they dream probably had it easier, but it's not easier. This needs to be communicated. So even if somebody is going through a phase and they're struggling through something, it's a beacon of hope. That some things do work out. It's just the persistent part that you have to stick through it. Just like when we couldn't get the video to go live, we stuck through it, and we're now live. I freaked out, but we're here.
It all
So
works out.
it all works out. It's very hard to believe in yourself, to believe in your own capacity and your own skills, but you eventually do make things work out as long as you passionately love what you do. So I think that is another way to summarize what you said.
No, thank you. I think you put it beautifully. Thank you.
So okay, so there is this really a big question that we always keep on questioning our own skills when we're an undergrad. We haven't just gotten our degree, and you applied abroad in US. It's a dream school. So like, how did you get to it? How did you just what made you apply? What got you there? I mean, MIT is like, it's not just a school in US. It's the best school in US. So how did it all happen?
So I think in junior, like going back to junior year, a lot of my seniors were applying to grad schools for their PhDs and their masters. And the thing about people in science programs is they don't really like to read much or write essays. That's one thing that I did observe. And I was this one CS major who was going and taking like history classes and literature classes. So I was the only one they could kind of turn to for like reviewing their statements of like purpose that you write for grad schools. So I ended up reading a lot of those and helping people kind of figure their statements out, reviewing them, editing them for them. So I think that gave me some practice that eventually I was like, I have practice in writing SOPs. Let's just give it a try. So I ended up writing my own, had my professors kind of look at it. But then I have a really good friend. She's a PhD student at Princeton. Her name's Alia Akhtar. And she went over my SOP. And I think she was the one who gave me the most critical feedback, so which is what made it so much better than it was originally. So I think having people who can kind of go through your SOPs, having professors who know you personally, either through your work or you working for them as, let's say, a teaching assistant or a research assistant, having someone who knows you outside of the classroom is important. So then they can write candid, recommendations for you because they know you and what you're capable of. I think for me, it really did boil down to my recommendations. So those are super important. Having, I think, experience other than your coursework, so whether it's through teaching experiences or it's through research, is again important. So even if you don't have like a formal contract with the teacher or with a professor, and if it's unpaid, even if it's unpaid, just try to do something like a research project that's just beyond your curriculum. I think that's important because it shows an interest. Other than that, I think your story, even in your statement of purpose, needs to come forth as very convincing, and there has to be a narrative that goes together, where you're coming from, where you're lacking right now, and what you need to improve to do what you want to do eventually. So an entire story that kind of makes sense to the person reading it. I think that's super important. Then sometimes talking to people who've graduated from that program is, again, also I'd say it's not even sometimes, it's super important to know what you're getting yourself into, or knowing, what are the elements of your statement that people are looking out for. I think having that is important. Again, grades, I think, so in some grad schools, they matter more than others. I think if you have a well-rounded profile, then even if you have an average GPA, it does not really put you to as much of a disadvantage. Again, GRE scores, if they're more technical programs, let's say Masters in Computer Science, I think higher GRE scores, especially for the quantitative section, are important. But when it comes to like verbal, I think it doesn't matter as much for you to have like above a certain, high, like maybe even getting into an average range is good enough.
Okay. Okay.
Those are like the more deeper, I guess, aspects of applying to grad schools.
I think it was much needed. It was like it's a good thing that we got to know because it's not something that you get to know from every other person. I think you have to. Maybe it's just another way that I'm talking to a person who just got out of it, right?
Fair. And I think for people who are just starting out, the whole journey can be intimidating. So what I normally kind of recommend people to do is write down everything that they know about themselves and their coursework and their research, everything onto like a Google Doc. and organize that in paragraphs. And then for each statement, kind of, need to reword it accordingly in a way that you add statements that are relevant to that particular program. So you integrate that program and their mission with what you're saying. So having a standard statement of purpose initially that just describes your work and what you want to do, but then you integrate with like information from the program. Let's say the professors you want to work with, or what are the types of like coursework that you're excited about, or the types of problems that you want to solve. So for each different statement, you should make it, very close to what, I mean, you have to make it in a way that it shows that you're really excited to join that particular program. Because if it's a generic, statement of purpose, then, why should a particular school like X choose you? And they'll be like, oh, well, this person will be happy at Y. Why are they even applying here? They don't really care too much, or it's not convincing enough. So you need to show that you're enthusiastic about that particular program or at that particular school.
You're very right, because I think that is one common feedback that we get from most of the people. And this is something we tend to avoid. We go like, we have to apply to 10 schools. We don't have time to rewrite our SOPs, but we really need to put in that extra effort because that is what gets you uh, the place.
Yep.
So you have a very interesting hero in your life. So for a techie person, it's a very interesting aspect to you. So let's hear more about it. Why that particular hero? Who is he? And how do you relate to him? And how do you incorporate all the things that you've learned from him?
So Abdul Sattar Eidi is one of probably the most amazing philanthropists to ever walk the earth. The reason why, I mean, if I talk about Eidi or any of my other heroes or people I look up to, most of them are actually not from tech. I think the value system in terms of being able to serve humanity, that's at the core of his message. How he started with pretty much no means to running the largest ambulance network in the world that's volunteer run. It's pretty incredible that despite all odds that you're able to, go forth and impact so many lives. I mean, in comparison, I've had a very privileged life, and I've, had so much to kind of, build off of, that I think it's my duty to give back to my community, to people, to the world in general. So that's the kind of the goal and the mission. I'm a long way from it. I really want to do more tech for social impact. That's one of my, I guess, top items on my bucket list, is to get there eventually. But for now, I think it's someone who I really aspire to be more like in terms of humility and, the fact that, he just served humanity, and that's where I want to be with, even with tech. So it's a long way off right now, but I hope to get there. I try to sort of consult for people who are doing, let's say, tech for social good, and try to help them out, or in whatever little ways, in every little capacity that I can, I try to help out. But again, long way out. But in terms of, let's say, other heroes or mentors, I surround myself with friends who I feel are much better than me, and they're my, I'd say, a little more realistic real life heroes. My friends, there's my friend Arfa Jazi. She's a PhD student at Berkeley in architecture. And, she's taught me how to become a better person, a better friend, a better daughter. There are things that you can learn from everyone. There are different value sets. But I think with my friends, our value systems align. So it's a lot easier for them to know where I'm coming from, what I want to do, and having people who support me. I have another friend, Zainab Khan. She is at New York Times now. And, she's an excellent person to talk to in terms of advice. And the way she portrays herself, she comes off as, extremely, extremely smart. And she is very smart. But the way she, poises herself and communicates with other people is something I really, really look up to. So I just surround myself with my everyday heroes who help me, kind of inspire me to become a better person.
So now that we're talking about our strengths, our communication, and our values, so there's this one really interesting part that I would like to talk about is your how you make sure that the minorities get to talk about their rights at a workplace. So how did you manage to get that prayer rug or your prayer place at your workplace? That is like an amazing thing that you've achieved. So, because it usually becomes a really sensitive topic to discuss. Discussing religion at workplace is a
Yep.
hard thing, but you
Mm-hmm.
still managed to do that. So let's talk about that. How do we achieve such goals?
So I think I've learned to deal with a lot of things with humor over time. So when I first joined Doctor, so at Al Jazeera, I had no problems because a lot of the significant portion of the staff were Muslim, and we had a dedicated prayer space and everything. But when I moved to Docker, I call myself a triple diversity candidate because I'm like brown and Muslim and female. So I was like one of a kind basically at Docker. So I joined, and initially I was using the mother's room to pray in. So as a Muslim, you're supposed to pray 5 times a day, and 2 or 3 of those times, depending on the length of the days, they fall during office hours. So I approached my manager and I was like, Brian, in case you haven't noticed, I'm Muslim and I need to, pray 5 times a day, and 2 of those, times fall during the workday. And I've been using the mother's room for the past month, but I feel really bad because at times people are waiting outside to get in and don't want to do this to mothers. So he suggested that I talk to the head of HR. And the head of HR is this amazing person. Her name's Lauren. And I was like, Lauren, I need to talk to you like one-on-one for like 15 minutes. Let me know whenever it's a good time. And so we sat down and I explained to her, I'm like, Lauren, I need to pray 5 times a day, but 2 of those times, again, it was the same story. And what can we do? So she was like, I mean, it's great that you bring this up because we've been thinking about building like a prayer or a meditation space for the longest time. And your case is like the perfect, impetus to kind of launch that. So she was like, what would you like? Would you like mood lighting, a lock, a frosted glass? So I was like, just a room where I can pray in. And a week after that, a person from HR came with a yoga mat in his hand. And he was like, I mean, this is for you to pray on. Your room is ready. We frosted the glass. There's a lock in it. Feel free to use it whenever you want. And that was such a heartwarming moment for me, and I felt truly accepted. And then when I found out, then this person from HR, Ben, he told me that other people, so the janitors who were Muslim in the building, were now also using that room to pray in. And previously they had been praying in a closet initially. So
Oh.
he was like, I found out, and now they're going to be using the room as well. I hope that's okay. But I realized that, it's not just for myself, but I've built this foundation that for any other Muslim who comes to work at Docker, now they'll be able to pray in and not have to worry about, anything. So I think that made me realize, it's a really good group of people that I'm a part of and that I'm able to represent, people like me.
So this shows a really positive image about, it's not just that one way that, all our terrorist side or the bad side of the economic side of Pakistan gets reflected on the US. We get to hear about all the good things about US through you or through others like you. So it's really good to hear about positive developments and religious acceptance and diversity acceptance. I think if we find a right way to stick to ourselves, our true identities, we can make it true. So it's kind of really encouraging to see you like this. Okay, so I've asked you so many questions like just half an hour ago. I'm kind of running out of questions. Like, okay, so yeah, we get to the most exciting part. We have a lot of data enthusiasts over here listening to you and looking for guidance on which tools are trending in US and how do we get to learn from saying most of our viewers are basically either moms or either just fresh grads or people who are trying to make a career in data. So it could be if you have mixed people, like we have some people who are data science enthusiasts or people who want to become data engineers or data analysts. So like guide us a little. What tools should we be working on and how should we learn about those, and what would be the right way to go about it?
Okay, sounds good. So I think I'll distinguish between the data analyst and data engineer first. So with the data analyst role, I don't think you need as strong like fundamentals in computer science. I think what you need to know really well is SQL. So you learn SQL online. There are so many courses out there. Practice problems on HackerRank. Get yourself to a good intermediate to advanced SQL stage. I think that's super important for data analysts when you're fetching data from different databases. And so there's so many different databases out there now, but they all have the same sort of logic. So if you're querying from a database, the syntax might be slightly different. You can always Google that to find the matching syntax for another type of database or flavor of SQL. But knowing like basic MySQL is, I guess, super important for an analyst. Other than that, I'd say I'll also put a particular emphasis on at least knowing one data visualization tool, like a business intelligence tool. So it could be Power BI or Tableau, or if you're just starting out, Google Data Studio plugged in with a spreadsheet, just try that out. I personally use Looker, and that's one of the major up and coming sort of visualization tools. They just got acquired by Google recently. So yeah, Looker is a pretty good tool. Looker and Tableau, I'd say, are pretty neck to neck in the industry right now. So, and then also knowing a language, either it's Python or R. I'd prefer Python, I guess, for analysts because there's a lot you can do with it. I think you can do pretty much the same with R and Python both, but I think Python has wide acceptability in comparison with R. So in the tech industry, at least in the Bay Area. So for a data analyst, fix your SQL, no Python or R, and a visualization tool. I think that's key. For data engineers, I think having a bit of a foundation in computer science is integral. So databases, I'd say study the theory, whether it's a Coursera course or if you've already received some training in undergrad, that's fine. Become aware of what types of databases are out there. But then develop a model, I'd say, for both analysts and engineers is to develop like a data flow mental model in your head. What are the tools out there that kind of help me interact with APIs? How do I fetch data from an API and put it into a database? Knowing the entire flow and where each, let's say you find out about a new tool, let's say you don't know anything about Tableau, but if someone tells you, you're able to put it in your mental block, oh, that's like the visualization layer. So think of data in terms of layers, that's my source, that's where it's going, this is where I'm transforming the data. So if you have that mental image of a pipeline in your head, every new tool you hear about, at least you can put that in your bucket that, this is where it corresponds to. But there's a lot out there, so don't get overwhelmed. At least keep an idea of one simple pipeline. Fetch data from an API. Let's say it's the Facebook API. Fetch data in Python, let's say, transform it, and then load it into a database, and then visualize it in a BI tool. For data engineering, I'd say everything a data analyst knows, but then also knowing more about a cloud environment, such as, let's say, Amazon Web Services or Google Cloud or it's the Microsoft Azure. So having familiarity inside of a cloud provider, I think is important. So Amazon has so many services out there for data. So knowing at least one of the cloud providers or at least some of the tools within that is super helpful. And this pops up in many of the job requirements as well. In addition, I would also suggest something like Jenkins or Luigi or Airflow to manage your workflows. I think that's, again, another added skill that a lot of job requirements are asking for. And on top of that, I think using Docker has become somewhat of a bonus skill to have as well. It's not just like because I work for Docker that I'm putting this in. It's a shameless plug. But I think knowing at least how to pull an image from Docker, basically making it work, just a small use case, getting yourself started with Docker should be like a good bonus skill to have. And I think one thing that as women, what we do is we always look for trying to achieve the 100% of the qualification necessary for a job. And so I was at this talk last year, and the speaker said that, oh, women are the only ones who look for 100% fulfilling the criteria of a job description before they even apply. And I had this moment and I'm like, wait, aren't you supposed to check if you meet 100% of the criteria? But apparently not. So apparently men apply even if they meet 60% of the qualifications. And I've said no to jobs when I met like 90% because I didn't fulfill, let's say, 10% of the criteria. So I think just putting your resume out there, even if you meet 70, 80% is good. Like, don't doubt yourself, but try to also make a bucket list of skills you'd like to learn eventually, even if you haven't had the time. But Coursera, I think, has a great Python course, Python for everybody. I would recommend that. And there are a bunch of like courses on Udemy and Coursera that you should go for. But I personally struggle with online learning. What I figured is that holding myself accountable to deadlines works. So what I've done is I've also added a Coursera course to my quarterly goals at my company. So I'm going to try and meet that. So then I'm actually accountable to my managers or as myself. It's like an extra goal that I have. I'm like, I have to do this. So I'm halfway through a course that I need to finish in 10 days before the quarter ends. But I think for me, deadlines work. So you need to figure out what helps you. Maybe working with a friend, learning new skills, going to meetups. I think if you go to meetups, try to develop an understanding of what is out there, even if they're online meetups or, in person, try to attend more meetups or even organize your own meetup and get to know people who do similar things, because it's so important to have like the mutual visibility with other people who do the same things as you. So whenever I go to a data conference and people are solving the exact same problems, but in different ways, it's always good to kind of know, what sort of tech stacks do other people have? What are they doing that I'm not doing? Or how have they dealt with the problem better than I have? So I think having that sort of visibility is also pretty cool. And then data science, I won't really talk about too much though, because I don't really do data science. But for that, I'd say start off with the machine learning course. Statistics fundamentals, I think, are more important than both data analyst and engineering. You don't need a solid background in statistics. But for, I think, data science, that will become key. But again, plenty of machine learning courses out there and intro to data science on Coursera as well that I would recommend.
That's a really, really holistic viewpoint of all the data related tracks that we have out there. Thank you so much, Aman. I mean,
Of
it's
course.
really good to know what's out there because somehow, no matter how much we try in our Asian countries or like I'd say EMEA countries, we still struggle with knowing what's really out there.
Fair
So
point.
it's yeah, because it's really good to have somebody who gives us a direct face-to-face mentorship on how to go about it. So I hope that this proves to be really, really useful to a lot of women who are struggling to make a career in data, because it's not only about a buzzword anymore. It's really the future of our entire world because we have to accept that we are generating data in petabytes in every nanosecond now. So let's like try to lighten it up a bit. Like tell us a phrase that you remind yourself of. For example, when you're in bed and you're not in that mood to go to office, or what motivates you to get out of bed and just do something.
What really motivates me is how the data that I work on is impacting, let's say, the business or my coworkers or my colleagues. So I think that's what really keeps me going. If I know that, I need to wake up so I can do this particular task, so the folks in the UK office can get this done faster, that sort of thing. I think that's a skill for data analysts, engineers, anyone who's working with data, is to know your stakeholder, develop personal relationships with them, is to know, what their motivations are, what they're trying to achieve. If you're just an engineer who's working on the pipeline and never communicating with the final user of the data, then you don't see the value that you're bringing to other people's lives, right? So
True.
when people respond and there's positive reinforcement, which keeps me going, when they're appreciative of what I've given them. Let's say I was working with the support engineering team recently and helped them develop a pipeline where they can now have better visibility on like customer requests and escalations and bugs. And the way they're so grateful for what I've helped achieve, that keeps me going. I'm like, okay, if they want something done, I'll do it quickly. I'll respond and do it as soon as I can because I know my work will be appreciated. So I think when you know that you're really helping your friends out or your colleagues out, I think that's what really keeps me going.
That's a really insightful thing. I think we all need to get a domain of all we were doing. Like it's not just about the little part that you're contributing, and you need to have a very entire view, at least, of the business or the use case that you're working at, so that you can perform better. I think. So I think that pretty much wraps up about all the questions that I've had. So now that you're here, you've talked about all the past things that you faced and all the things that you're currently working out. What are your future aspirations? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Where would you like pave your way from here till the 5 year older Aman?
Yeah, you're asking the loaded question. So I think one thing I realized earlier on in my career is that my work as an individual contributor, and well, not as a manager, let's say, is very limited because all the engineering jobs that, let's say, I come across want solid engineering, not much focus on with stakeholders. You're just working 90% of your time solving a problem. And I realize I'm not like that. I like working with people. I feel like I could become a better manager. So I think one of my goals for the next 5 years is to become a manager, have a small team reporting to me, because I feel like I've become pretty good at building, a good environment around myself. So if I can do that with teams and, get teams together and help them work towards a particular goal, I'd be super excited to do that. So I think in the next 5 years, I definitely want to lead a team. The other thing I want to do is do something more that's on the side. Again, tech for social impact. That's the running theme. And I keep having different ideas in my head. I keep getting different ideas, never really come down to doing them. But I've started keeping track of all my ideas in a journal, something called the bullet journal method that I've sort of incorporated in my life to remain focused. So basically what I do is I keep track of my monthly goals, yearly, 5-year goals, everything, have all of those, and then keep tracking them from time to time. Transfer goals from month to month. If I haven't done something last month, I transfer them over to the current month. So I try to sort of at least keep reminded of my goals, and that and I hold myself accountable, and then do a retrospective with myself. Why am I not getting this done? So I think I definitely want to do, so one thing, again, become a leader, um, do more mentorship. So I think right now I try to help out at least 1 or 2 students apply to grad school every year. I think I'd probably like to scale that up, maybe get a bunch of us together and work on something that help people apply to grad schools, people who are coming from Pakistan or the Middle East or wherever, and provide like a proper mentorship platform for people. So like you said, people are looking for face-to-face contact with, people who work in the Bay Area or in tech in the US. So building those connections. So having mentorship program, I think I definitely want to do something along those lines.
It's really eye-opening because most of people, especially in tech, they just stick to what they're really comfortable in, because they build their comfort zone very easily and they go like, this is what I'm comfortable at. This is the only thing that I'm going to do for the rest of my life. And usually, once a developer is always a developer. It's very hard to see somebody who goes to a managerial role. So it's inspiring to see that no matter how diverse, like you have a very diverse background, and no matter what the odds are, you're still striving for what you want, and that keeps us motivated as well.
Yeah, because I think, but then it also depends on what your comfort zone is, right? If you don't want to like be out there or talking to people, that's also okay. That's something I share with one of my colleagues, who's also a data engineer. She comes from a math background, but all she wants to do is just sit down and engineer and not have to talk to stakeholders. So I mean, like, that's also okay. It really depends on what you want to do and what you're passionate about. But she's also very good at like problem solving and thinking about solutions. And like, that's where she's adding value. So you have to first figure out, where do you add value? What are your strengths and what keeps you going? So once you kind of align your motivations with what you're good at and where you want to be, I think that's the, the kind of, if you think about like a Venn diagram, that's like the middle, the intersection of all three sort of the circles or sets.
That is
So
so true. I think the hardest part is knowing that what you're good at, and I think that only comes from a little experience with all the domains that you encounter. So, it's our night in Pakistan, and it's about your day over there. So, how do you feel starting your day with us?
Oh, I feel great. So usually I have a small. It's a nice gradual ramp up to my day. So it'll start off. Well, I'll have my morning chai. Nothing can start without my chai. So it has to be chai, breakfast, and then I kind of start off. But this was fun actually. But on other days, which does happen maybe once a week, I'll be getting pinged from the UK office and North Carolina and everyone wanting stuff because now. So I'm now in the East Coast time zone. I just moved to Toronto recently. But now, as more and
Okay,
more people
okay.
find out, I get pinged from the East Coast at like 8 a.m. So I was enjoying that before though, because no one would bug me till 11 a.m. or 12 p.m. here. So I would like start work, plan my day, do everything gradually. But now, as more and more people find out I'm in this time zone, people send me requests early morning. So that's changing. So this is a nice change to my regular everyday job. So this was fun. Thank you. And my
It was
manager is
really
super.
nice talking to you,
Yeah,
Aman. It was
no, of
really nice.
course.
I got to learn a lot about you and a lot about US and a lot about the culture and data, and like that's all we are all about, learning and growing. And I hope that all our viewers get to learn and grow as well. And it's really inspiring that how you took up the time from your very, very, very busy schedule, and you just did all this. Thank you so much.
No, of course, and I'm beginning to realize now that this is super important. And I was at the Grace Hopper celebration a few weeks ago in Florida. And it's like 25,000 women in tech, which was incredible. But that's how a friend pointed out to me. She was like, Aman, you know all these people, and why don't you do more of this? Talk more with people, kind of help them apply to grad schools, do more of this on a bigger scale. So I'm just trying to figure out how to do that. So this is like the first step in that direction, is to kind of be able to get my voice across to people who might benefit from, what I do and where they want to be.
We'll definitely try to document bits and pieces of this talk in probably in images or probably in small videos so that it reaches out to more people, because obviously it gets really daunting to listen to the entire video, and most people keep phasing in and out during a live session. But I think we'll probably make small segments so that it's useful for other people, and we'll tag them. We'll try to do what we can do. I'm not sure how much flexibility we have on Facebook Live, but yeah, I think I think this is something that's gonna fulfill your purpose as well.
No, thank you. And I think it's one of the things that we are battling as well. When you talk about like shorter segments, I've been struggling as well with attention span and trying to kind of read more now, read books, because now I realize I fast forward videos as well, that I don't have the attention span to just sit through something. So I'm trying to work on that. And it's a challenge that's going to come up for us even in general as our mindfulness is going down. We need to be mindful of the tech we use. Even though I'm like on my computer all day, I have to become better and more mindful about how I'm using it, and finding those times to just tune out. I'm not good at it at all right now, but it's a journey. When you asked about 5 years, I think I want to become more mindful of the way I'm using tech and try to stop, addictive behaviors when it comes to using Facebook or, whatever, social media.
Maybe Docker one day.
Yes, no, Docker is important. Docker makes machines run as well. So I can't stop using
Okay.
Docker though.
Okay, so like we're gonna agree that we have some positive addictions as well.
A fair point. Yes, let's agree to that.
It was really nice talking to you. I mean, like I think we should do this more often, or maybe on some other scale. But it was really good learning from you, talking to you, and it was a maybe even though it's my night, but it's something that I'm gonna sleep with.
And that's awesome. It's a good bedtime story then to
It's a
sleep with.
good story, yes.
Yeah. I don't know if
So
do we have any time left for questions though? If anyone has any
yeah,
questions.
we should. I think we should take questions.
But what were you saying though? I think I just cut you short.
Oh, because I was really getting distracted with all the. Do we have any questions? Do we have any comments on this thread? Because I'm really scared of changing this orientation now because
No,
just in case
okay.
everyone.
Let's just yeah. If anyone has any questions, just I can see them here. Yeah, this is the first time I'm doing a Facebook Live, so it's interesting how it all works.
Yeah, I hope at least Vijaya is listening to us. Hey Vijaya, if you have any questions for us, please do ask.
Yeah, if not, that's also okay. Or
We're
I've put
perfectly fine with that.
or I've put everyone to sleep. That could also be it.
No, 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 no. That is not gonna be it at all. I think because we have this in a landscape mode. If we would have had it in a portrait mode, we get to see the live comments side by side. So
Yes, so I am seeing the live comments pop up, just no questions, which I mean, I don't mind. I just thought I'd open it up in case anyone had any questions. But no, if you have any other thoughts, I would love to hear them, Sajid.
I think I've asked a lot of questions. I think you should ask me some questions as well, so that you get it.
Yeah, what are you working? What are some of the interesting challenges you're working on right now?
Okay, so basically, I just graduated in May, and I was working as a data analyst at Systems Limited, which is a software house in Pakistan. And then it was just a probationary period, and then I found a job at Teradata.
Nice, that's
So yeah,
awesome.
yeah. So I'm still learning the Teradata database and learning SQL because I'm really interested in building my career as a data engineer. So that is why I was really enthusiastic about this interview, because obviously it's not just that, just because I'm at Teradata should not be my only goal. I need to learn more AWS and more Azure, and because that is the future, I
Hmm.
believe. So, I got to learn a lot and I'm really happy.
Awesome. No, I'm glad I was able to. Maybe the sequel part spoke to you more than
Yeah,
anything
it
else.
did, because I took a lot of web-based trainings, and I was like,
Trainings.
why am I stuck with SQL? Why did I even do a computer science degree if I just had to do SQL? But yeah, I'm really understanding now that it's important to have a bit of a data science or computer science background to be able to move forward with all this. So yeah, I'm at peace
You can
now.
always build that background, so it's fine. Not all hope is lost.
Yeah, I did. I have a computer science degree.
Oh,
thankful.
perfect. There you go. That's awesome, then. Then
Yeah,
you're on your way. Awesome. I don't think
that's
we have any questions though. So Sajal, feel free to do whatever you want with this call.
okay. We do have questions. We have
Yeah?
here.
I'm not seeing anything pop up.
Okay, we
Okay.
have for applying to grad school mainly.
Mm-hmm.
Can you please share the link to your LinkedIn profile?
Mm,
Okay, we'll do that.
thank you.
Okay, and what other questions do we have?
I'll probably start a form though. So if you reach out, I might maybe have a form set up because I get a lot of requests every day on my LinkedIn. So if I can get you in a spreadsheet, that might be easy for me to kind of remember and keep track. So yeah, reach out to me and I'll send you a link to a form that you can fill out.
Yeah, I think some people are listening to us. I'm glad.
Yeah.
Because our videos usually have a very wide reach. We might not get like instant live up people on our video, but yeah, we have a very wide reach. We have a very big Facebook group where everything gets running, and we get a
That's
lot of
fine.
views on that. Yeah.
And I'll try to
So thank you.
respond in comments as well. When if any comments show up later, I can try and respond to those as well.
Yeah, I'll just tag you here so that everybody knows who Aman is.
Okay, let's do that then. Sounds good.
Thank you so much for being with us and taking special time out, because it was really nice knowing you. I mean, I hope you get to reach your goals, and we are we are really grateful to have you.
Yeah, my pleasure to be here. Thank you so much, and to the entire team for having me here.
Okay, that was Amn Rahman for all of you. I hope you guys get to learn a lot, and you better listen to the whole video again, because there's not even a single part that I would say was even a teeny bit less amusing than the other ones. So do give it another watch, and do like and share, and like do ask any questions that you have from Aman. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Aman.
And
Okay,
thank
good
you.
night,
Take care.
everybody, and good morning, everybody in US.
Take care. Bye.
Bye bye. Bye bye.